We don't just look to the future, we build it. Welcome to Beyond the Verse. Hello, friends, and welcome to Beyond the Verse, Star Citizen podcast. I'm your host, Sulyce, and this is episode 141. And this could be the biggest updates in development cycle in several months, if not years. We're going to kick off with the Alpha 4.7 PTU testing in the Evocati. It's a patch that is shaping up to redefine core systems and really how every single one of us plays this game. Then we're going to break down the February monthly report with real insights on mission systems, ships that you don't want to miss, and features headed to the persistent universe. And then we're going to hear from developers from the latest Star Citizen Live Tech Talk with Sean Tracy about the engine and the development tools that power the Star Citizen universe. This episode is crucial. It matters because both the tech behind the scenes and the changes coming to your ship and missions are leveling up in the verse in a big, big way. Welcome in, everybody. It's good to hear from y'all. It's good to see y'all. It's been a very, very busy week. A lot of great intelligence coming from CIG for this week, whether it's, again, the PU monthly report, which was insanity. It was deep. A lot of ship updates that's going to get everybody super excited. Ironclad, Kraken, Hull Bravo. These are all buzz ship names that are coming in the next couple of months. This is extremely, extremely exciting to get into that piece. And then the tech talk, where I asked a tremendous question. I asked probably the most important question, which they didn't address. It's fine. Like, it was not in the scope of Sean Tracy and what necessarily he owns. But the question I asked about ship ownership and how orgs will pass permissions off and the tech behind actually going from server to server, and somebody logs in for one day and then logs out, logs back in a month later. Where are they at on the ship? If the ship was stored, like, I have all those questions, but that's going to have to wait until another Star Citizen Live, maybe gameplay systems and not necessarily tech. So whatever, that's fine. That's fine. I'm an org leader, so that's of course something that really matters to me, hugely. Hugely is not a word, but I'm going to go with it. So there is a lot to talk about. And I did go through each one of these extremely long narratives and extremely long YouTube videos. I pulled out maybe 10 highlights from each, and we're going to go through each. At least what I think is new, exciting. So I might not revisit things like the Hull Bravo going through to gray box phase and LODO. I think it's currently in LODO. I might not go into that specifically because we've talked about it. It's kind of old news. But the things that I really did extrapolate that I think is important for you to hear. Alongside all of that, and this will be our first segment, is the Evocati testing and the PTU. There is this testing going on that originally started at the beginning of the week. It involved Rockcracker. We're going to find out the actual name here in a couple seconds. It's early. It's 4:56 a.m. on a Friday morning. It went into that. We're excited about that. It was something that was teased in CitizenCon way back several months ago. And it is. It's like the first, it's the first update to dungeons since like contested zones. Right. You can say that the QV sites and Nyx might be that like contested zone 2.0. But I think Rockcracker Breaker, good Lord, I think it's Rockbreaker. Bear with me here. I'll pull up the article in a second. I do think this has the potential of really launching off maybe the future of what dungeons look like inside of Star Citizen. And I will tell you right now, they're not instants, but there are a significant amount of numbers scattered throughout the verse. And why don't we just go ahead and get started on it? We're already here, right? All right, let me pull it up. Boopity boop. And sharing my screen for those of you on video. Here it is. These are the Evocati test notes. Again, before y'all get all in a huffy state, we can talk about this. We can talk about what's going on. I just can't get into the game and show you media. Okay, so calm down. Okay, testing and feedback focus. Here we go. Tonight's focus. Really, this happened last night. So this is like the latest and greatest. So last night we had org night. I have not been able to get in and test this, so I'm not going to be able to give you much insights on how I feel about it. But this is last night. The focus was mostly on the integration of inventory and crafting from our previous Evo Tech previews. Stanton is back as well. Operation Breaker stations will be blocked tonight due to the fuse issues. Okay. All right. So it is Breaker, Rock Breaker. Obviously focusing on stability bug fixes, long-term persistent between PTU releases, Operation Breaker stations and locations, inventory rework inclusions, crafting inclusions, and then of course some known issues. Let's actually get into the features and gameplay. Operation Breaker Station Polish, reduced mission location availability, respawn timer to 30 minutes for PTU testing. Okay. Adding a new combat encounter to the elevator hall, updates to FPS AI loadouts for missing weapons, further performance, LOD, audio, lighting, signage, and minimap markup, Torite and Savrillium, mineable resources added to the dungeon, added crafting blueprints as part of the mission rewards, salamander enemy NPC facial animations, and voice pack dialogue lines. Additional gameplay updates. Removed screen blur from bleeding effects so that the screen blurring requires more than just that status. I don't know about y'all, but I don't have any of those effects turned on my game. Not necessarily because it slows down or it's not optimized. I do that in every game. I turn off like the film grain. I turn off the screen blurring. I like the crisp and cleanness of just having it all turned off. I don't know. What do y'all do? Because I can't stand it, to be very, very honest with you. So I don't know why I went back to sharing my screen. We're kind of done showing it. I have not been able to get into this. Now, I have done extensive testing in the inventory rework and the crafting T0. So I'm excited to report that that's coming. That is 4.7. So for those of you on social media these last couple of days who responded to my Twitter post or X post, whatever we're calling it nowadays, they're all coming in the next like 2 weeks. So here's my prediction for the next couple of days, next couple of weeks. I highly predict that Evocati testing will continue for the rest of this week and even through the weekend. And then next week, we'll start seeing the PTU, like the wave cycle hit. So we'll probably have an entire week of wave cycles. But I don't think we see this 4.7 until that second week. So not next week, but the week after. I think that's the week starting the 16th. It's like Monday, the March 16th. I think we'll see it that week. Now, if I was being aggressive, I would say maybe next weekend, so a week from now, but we're not going to see it, I think, in the next few days. We'll see it at least in a week, if not probably up to 10 days out. My prediction with how these cycles are releasing from CIG. So you will get your inventory rework. You will get your crafting T0. There will be a rock breaker event that happens that, again, I think I wrote down that there are 60 locations that are scattered throughout Nix and the sites. Of course, there's leaks. I'm never going to show you a leak, but the leaked images are amazing. If you've been to a QV site, I think it's similar to maybe one of the new the QV sites, but it stands alone. And I do think, I haven't seen the animation yet, but if Hathor, the mining missions, right, you push the button, laser goes down, the planet like erupts. If it's anything like that, I can't wait to see the animations that this event brings. So there you go. So get excited. Next couple of days, stay tuned for Beyond the Verse podcasts, social media posts. Of course, every day we're going to post updates, and we're going to cover it as soon as it gets here. Okay, so let's get into the PU monthly report. This one was a banger. So I'm just going to show y'all real quick. I'm not going to read line by line. We've already kind of moved past that from a couple episodes ago. But I just wanted to show y'all some of the imagery, right? So again, this is very Nix focused. Nix is the focus for 2026 or 2956 as we go into next year. And of course, we've got other systems coming as well, Castra, as well as Terra. All right. So some of the pictures, I don't know. I like showing y'all the pictures, right? We do have the monthly report that we're going to get into here in the next couple of minutes. Atmo Esports had a great event. I thought there was a picture of a ship. Maybe I'm thinking of a previous PU. Oh, well, there's a couple of sneak peek pictures that if I come across them, I'll absolutely share my screen for you. But let me go ahead and pull up my notes. Wish me luck here. PU monthly report. And we're going to go through, looks like I have 12 highlights. Now I'm going to go somewhat quickly through here. So let's just get started with the first one, right? Online tech and instancing. So major backend stability work, instancing nearing handoff, and item recovery tier 1 is what I have as my number 1 pullout from this monthly report. So I'm just going to list off the bullet points real quick. Hybrid DGS stability improvements, new network stack integration processing, if you're a nerd and you like that tech shit. We've got improved dynamic server scaling, instancing entering final technical stage. I think that's the headliner right there. A lot of you are interested in this item recovery tier 1. I'll explain that here in a second. Moving towards feature complete and long-term database performance improvements. Why this is my number 1. This is my number 1 pullout because it is the infrastructure, scaffolding, the foundation, whatever analogy you want to use for 1.0, right? Instancing the database performance, recovery systems, persistent economy, reputation, this large scale content push. This is all very important for 1.0. And I think we're all wanting 1.0 sooner rather than later. All right, let's talk about item recovery tier 1. All right, so at this current moment, let's actually go back. So before T0, or the first iteration of it, there was really no item recovery. Anything that you wore was lootable. You would be defeated on the battlefield, and then your body would get looted. And these are subscriber gear, paid items. I'm going to run you through a scenario that I'm going to keep alluding to, and there's a reason, I promise. But you're in your ship with all of your items, your very important items, your Gucci gear, right? Your Gucci gear, and you take off from Nyx. You leave your pad, and then somebody, let's just say accidentally, pad rams you or hits you. You die. You blow up. It's all gone. It's all gone. And so there was this idea of like unique item recovery. Like, is there a way that players can recall their subscriber gear or recall the gear that they actually paid money for? And so there was this idea of unique item recovery that was always debated, and it honestly still is debated. But the process of moving forward to what that looks like in 1.0 became the item recovery T0. So let's go current state. So current state, you lose everything that is in your inventory when you are defeated. So like when somebody goes and they loot your body, your backpack, any items in your backpack or your chest or your pants, like that's all fair game. Somebody can go in there and steal it. But the gear that you're wearing, even the gear that you have attached, so like your rifle that is attached to your backpack, is non-lootable. So actually when you spawn back into the game, right? So wherever your primary residence is or your temporary relog or region, you're going to start the game back in all of your gear, right? You'll lose all the inventory that was inside of your gear, but anything attached and on your persons, like again, armor or anything attached to that armor, you keep. And so let me just talk about the dichotomy real quick. The dichotomy of this is you're on one side of the fence where you're like, okay, I finally can use my subscriber gear and the gear that I've purchased without fear of losing it until the next patch reset. And I think that is super important. Again, in this current moment, we're not talking post 1.0. In this current moment, some of us have spent hundreds of dollars on armor and gear. And then of course you're a subscriber, so you get all these little helmets and armors and backpacks and all the other items. You'll get them from the subscriber gear once a month, but no one ever equipped them or used them because once you died, you lost it all. Well, T0 was great for those individuals because there was no risk, right? You kept what you had. In fact, you were almost encouraged to use those unique items and those named items because again, they were permanently on you. Now, the other side of that fence is it actually kind of ruined any sort of PvP. Because what would happen is people would carelessly go into an engagement and without any fear of dying. So they just go in, they do what they need to do. They get defeated. And then maybe their respawn point was a C8R Pisces right outside of the bunker or wherever this event was. And now they're back, but they're already back in the fight because they've gotten up from the medical bed and they have everything on them. They have their gear, they have their weapons and ammo, not ammo, but they have everything on them that was attached to them. And so now they're ready to get back at it. And so there was this constant like, well, there's no real weight to PvP. There's no real weight to combat. So there's got to be a beautiful middle ground. I don't know what that is. I am not a game developer. I am Sulyce, and I talk about this on a podcast. I do not work for this studio, despite some of you and in your comments, but it's not my problem to solve. But I have an opinion on it. I absolutely have an opinion on how I feel about things. But there's got to be some sort of middle ground. I think you run a risk, and I don't know if it's like legal or PR or marketing. Like I don't necessarily know. But you run a risk of like, I'm paying, let's just say $50 for the Red Alert gear set, or whatever that bundle is. That's $50. And then now I'm going to go play. Maybe in the first 5 minutes, I get screwed over, right? I fall through an elevator. I die. I respawn with a nurse gown on. Well, where's all the $50 worth of gear? It's just gone. I get pad rammed. I get griefed. And I'm talking legitimate grief, not PvP, guys. Like, hopefully this is not your first podcast listening to me, but I do think there is a difference between piracy, PvP, and griefing. But like, let's say you actually get griefed, you get kind of, cornered, can't play the game. You're going to lose everything. And so it'll be very interesting to see how this iterates, how this grows between now and when 1.0 launches. That's a long conversation for just one topic. But I think item recovery is a huge topic that is extremely polarizing and is extremely debatable. Cool story. All right, let's go to the inventory rework. So this one's kind of obvious. I pulled this out for number 2 because it literally impacts everybody. This and crafting literally impacts everybody. So you're going to log into the game whenever 4.7 comes. You might not do Rockbreaker. You might not do the new content. You might not even go to Nyx. But you better believe your user interface for inventory is completely different. How you stack and how you manage and how you look at the game and engage in your mission, whatever game loop you're in, like this will impact you. Right? Evocati is already testing it. I have tested it in like 3 different versions. It's amazing. And I don't know. I don't know if I can say it any other way. It will change the way you see Star Citizen. Now, does it change when you're outside your inventory? No, but we're all loot goblins. We all love to loot. We're playing the game to get gear, and like how you walk into a room full of boxes and then hit I and start pulling items from those boxes. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it, but it will impact you. It will change how you handle the game. So super important. It affects every single player. All right. The third item, economy crackdown guardrails, anti-exploit measures. Okay. So this one's also super important. You can't really grow the economy. You can't really grow Star Citizen or the player base or have, legitimate crafting or any sort of reward or reputation system if you don't prevent exploits, right? Exploits can completely destroy the economy. So there was a major focus on exploit cleanup and protection. So bullet points, closing duplication and UEC generation loopholes. Guardrails and monitoring systems coming in 4.7. Commodity and trade balancing. Groundwork for crafting and item recovery systems. I love the Star Citizen player base, but gamers will be gamers. I've said this several episodes ago. Like, yeah, you're going to do the meta. You're going to do the best and easiest way to accomplish your in-game goals. And sometimes you have the cleanest of intents, right? Like you might be thinking that you're doing all the right things. And like, you just so happen to see a back door. I'm making this up. This is not a thing, but in the QV sites, maybe like you discovered that you could go through an asteroid to enter the hangar room or the warehouse from like a back entrance, but like that was never the intention of the game, right? There's an actual exploit tied to the warehouse. I'm just trying not to talk about it explicitly. And so like there's good intent, there's honest players. And so like those I think can easily be, cracked down on, and that's fixed on the back end. It's really not ever something that a studio should broadcast. But then you've got these like known issues, like being able to, I'm going to say it anyways, being able to like trip the kiosk. So that way it opens up the warehouse doors. You don't even have to play the rest of the 1.5 hour mission. That's been fixed since then. It's not a thing anymore, but that's just one example that I keep on referencing. There's also like people were doing some inventory things where they were picking up items and then dropping them and picking up items. And it was like duplicating, minerals and ores. And so they were just doing that for hours, getting like infinite amount of materials. There's something around those lines as well. But like you can't have economy legitimacy. It's a mouthful. If these things still happen, whether good intended or bad or ill intended, right? If they don't stabilize the economy before 1.0 like rolls out, progression's not going to mean crap. Progression will be meaningless. So it's very kind of back end. It's very like quiet, but it is critical. It is crucial in the future of Star Citizen. Let's keep going. Nyx gets major content expansion, including Rock Cracker mission. Okay, so now is it Rock Cracker? Good Lord. I'm 15 minutes into this and like I have both. Guys, I literally have both written down. I have QV breaker stations, which I know are different. Well, no, the QV breaker stations are where, oh my gosh, guys. It's like I should, it's like maybe I should do the Evocati testing. So like I don't have any questions. All right. So the QV breaker stations are where the Rock Cracker missions take place. There you go. There's your, get that tattooed. that is the official naming convention. So QV breaker stations are the locations and Rock Cracker is the missions that take place at those locations. Good God. Okay. Back to the headline. Nyx gets major content expansion, including Rock Cracker missions and new refueling stations. Okay. So we got the QV breaker stations, people service stations ran by the People's Alliance, dozens of new contracts, courier missions are fully reworked, ship wave missions expanded beyond Gilly, including large ship boss, defend ship missions now track ship health properly. So what I got out of this, and yeah, I know you might not care about Nyx, but I think coming out of CitizenCon this last year, Genesis is building these new planets. So you might want to focus on Nyx. Nyx might be very important for you, whether you play in Nyx or not. And that is a major focus. I think I've said that a few times now since talking about the PE monthly report. So Nyx is a huge focus. It's more than just another system. Okay. It's being like, it's almost the sandbox where CIG is trying all this new PvE content, and PvP. I'm not singling out PvE, but it seems like it's kind of focused on PvE with the risk of PvP being a thing. So I think that's super, super important. They talked about healthier gameplay loops, and I'm going to say this very quick, and I'm going to run away from it. Not because I'm afraid of confrontation or the debate, because I only have an hour or so to do this podcast. They talked about healthier gameplay loops and kind of in the same vein of like structured PvE. Look, here's the deal. I love the idea of player versus environment missions, but always having to watch your back for a player versus player situation. Now, whether that is explicitly called out or whether it's deliberately part of the mission, I think we can debate on whether they're leaving one of these game styles behind. But like last night in Org Night, we are clearing out the warehouse at the QV sites. And we kind of, when a ship comes out of its quantum, you can kind of hear that audio cue. Sorry, I'm dying over here. You can hear the audio cue. We were hearing that while looting. So you can imagine like the intensity, right? The escalation, the anxiety that comes from that, because you don't know how big of a force is landing and coming into the warehouse space, right? So that adds a significant amount of fun. Now, had we come under an engagement and it was a massive org versus org battle, I think you would have a divide. I think there would be people that were like, man, we did an hour and a half of this just to die because some other org wanted to kill us for no reason. They could have waited for the timer to reset, blah, blah, blah. So you'd have like half of the group that probably feel that way. And then the other half would have had an amazing time, right? Would have had a great story to tell. Right on a Friday, like, man, remember what happened last night? Or hey, let's talk about last night. I don't think you're ever going to make every player happy. And I know this is a cop-out response, but just remember that this is CIG's game. This is Chris Roberts' game, and he's going to make it, and he's going to give the direction to make it however they seem fit. And it might lean heavier on PvE versus PvP, or it might be perfectly balanced in the future. It's just you're gonna have your things that you love about it, and you're gonna have your things that you hate about it. And we're not gonna get into instancing and how instancing impacts that at all, but it kind of ties into the same conversation. Hold on. Good God. Okay. Number 5, I have capital ship services. They're progressing towards downstream teams. So this is core gameplay development ongoing. It's tied to social features shown in CitizenCon 2954, right? So this is likely groundwork for future capital ship gameplay loops like repairs, maintenance, service logistics. This is strategic fleet gameplay territory. Right. So it kind of signals the future of org gameplay. So there's also this idea when they were talking about the Kraken, they were talking about hero rooms. And I kind of want to just lean on that or go into that for a couple seconds. They're getting rid of waste. And I have to be careful with how I say that, but like creating rooms just for the sake of creating rooms. They want to have these rooms that have like functionality. So they talked about like engaging on the Kraken and the engineering room being super important and like funneling people in this interaction or this engagement around the engineering room. So instead of having like a billion freaking rooms in the Javelin, which they didn't bring up, but I'm bringing it up. So you have the Javelin, the battle cruiser, maybe potentially the Bengal, as something that you can craft in the future. There's a lot of wasted space, and I think that's really good for our peers and for like immersion. But I think it becomes like it becomes a hallway walking simulator at that point. You're going to jump in on a Bengal, you're going to jump in on a battle cruiser, you're going to board it and be like, all right, guys, let's go. And then it'll take you 45 minutes just to walk through the damn thing. And so I think what they're talking about, and just in this one example I'm bringing up, I think what they're talking about is like really trying to shave off that waste, not to the point where it hurts the immersion and the identity of the ship, right? But kind of forcing that gameplay loop for, again, like I said, org level gameplay. All right, AI improvements. I've written down AI safe zones improved, Valkyr traversal updates, bullet points, safe zones integrated into global perception systems, Valkyr underground traversal upgraded, accuracy control and improvements, AI support for refueling missions, safe zones done. Let me try this again. Safe zones done correctly, improve mission staging and reduce frustration. I don't know, this feels pretty typical, but just in every game, AI is important. And again, last night in Org Night, the AI was turned up all the way up. And it was good. It was good. It was combative. It was risky. In a game that will not have difficulty levels, like you can't tune up or tune down difficulty, that is an ongoing debate in the gaming industry. Right. So like Crimson Desert that's coming out in a couple of days will not have a difficulty meter, just like Elden Ring or any of the Dark Souls games. You're going to go and exist and hopefully you're good. And if you're not, you got to get gooder in order to move on throughout the game. It's going to kind of be like most MMOs, actually all MMOs, they don't have a difficulty meter. Right. So AI matters, but like, do you err on the side of extremely difficult? Or do you err on the side of like, okay, challenging, but not where it just completely breaks the game? All right, let's go. Let's keep going. All right, Hammerhead Gold Standard is complete. The gold standard for the Hammerhead is complete, guys. So the Aegis Hammerhead art phase, it's moving to downstream teams. Okay, I think we'll see it in Invictus launch week. I think it'll come out Invictus launch week. It might come out sooner. Heck, it might even come out during the 4.7 launch. It might be the ship that releases with 4.7. And it's just a rework. So if you already have a Hammerhead, you're going to have the updated version in your stockpile. But I think the bullet point or the headliner here is they talked about a related ship. So they said Aegis Hammerhead with its gold standard, and then work has been started on a related ship. So related can mean a million different things, but usually in that context, it's like a different variant of the Hammerhead. And I don't know what the heck that would be. Hopefully it's not another cargo variant, because we have a billion freaking cargo ships. I made the joke about it being like a media vessel, like the Mako, if y'all are familiar with the Mako. It'd be hilarious to watch like a freaking Hammerhead flying by, and it's just like, it's videoing the battlefield. It's not that. I almost can promise you it's not that. But there's no other intel. No one knows what this related ship is. Or it could very much mean that it's using the assets, right? It's like the Aegis Hammerhead's graphics, its graphics package is being leveraged in other ships. So you could say that is related. No one knows. I thought that was important. We have updates on the Hull B, the Ironclad, and the Raylan. All right, so here we go. The Hull B is nearing the level of detail 0 phase, which I would think we will see the Hull B between now and Invictus launch week. The Hull series is not a combat ship, so it's not. I don't know why they would like force wait to announce it until Invictus launch week, but nevertheless, the Ironclad variants are moving through gray box into the level of detail 0. The Gaddock Raylan is entering gray box ahead of Alien Week. Greycat UTV is progressing. 3 unannounced vehicle ships. That was redundant. 3 unannounced vehicles advancing to their next phases. And then the Kraken white box review, it's adjusted. They said there was modifications to it, but it's still on track for next year. So maybe that's news to you. I've been kind of aware, but we're not going to see the Kraken this year. It's not the IAE ship of the year. I think that's still going to be the Galaxy. We know that the RSI Galaxy is going to be a main focus. That was announced last year in one of the videos. So we know that that's going to probably headline IAE. But the Kraken confirmed for next year. Gaddock Raylan, we will see that during Alien Week. It's done. It says entering gray box, but it's like Alien Week is after, if I'm not mistaken, Alien Week is after Invictus launch week. So we have plenty of time. We will absolutely see Gaddock Raylan during Alien Week. We will absolutely see, I think, both Ironclads, the Ironclad and the Ironclad Assault. We're going to see both of those in Invictus launch week. And then somewhere the whole B is going to come. And it might be one of those shadow drops. It might just be like, hey, and this week we're going to have a behind the ships episode of Inside Star Citizen or whatever. And it's going to throw out the whole Bravo. Really looking forward to that. I think it's going to fulfill the whole Bravo. It's going to fulfill that gap that we see in like the 400s, 500s area of cargo hauling. So that'll be very interesting. Okay. Missions getting into the game that are driving us towards 1.0. I know that is extremely lofty. And I don't really have more information to say other than they're developing new factions. They're capturing sessions for new NPCs. They're expanding on the tactical strike groups. But they're aiming, the story missions are aimed at building the 1.0 narrative pipeline. So we always hyper focus on 1.0 because that's it, right? We get Squadron 42 this year, knock on wood. Just roll with me here. We don't have any intel that says otherwise. So Squadron 42 this year. Well, hopefully soon after, we should see 1.0, whether that's a year after or 2 years after. Like we need to see 1.0 pretty soon after Squadron 42. In my opinion, I think they need to happen very close to each other for them to be like relevant and have their time in the space. No pun intended. Yes, think of it as, okay, I know we talk about roadmaps and we talk about like the runways, but like really think about it as a runway. They're going to start moving towards things that are projecting us on the runway to 1.0. And so I'm always going to call that out as super important to bring up. We got about 2 more headlines. AI support and narrative integration for refueling missions, right? So logistic players, you get a win here. Ground fog dissipation model and name table engine rewrite. Yes, it is technical and it's like on the back end, like polishing, but it's essential, right? Fog creates the immersion. Fog, yeah, I mean, it creates immersion, but it like sets the tone for these missions, right? Like it changes, my opinion, changes freaking everything about the immersion. And then last, we have strong community presence and racing event engagement. This, we don't normally go through community events, but I do just want to highlight, all these upcoming events are like super important. And whether you race in them or not, or whether you participate at all, if you're refueling or whatever, if you participate at all in these racing events, like at the very least, just watch one. It's the community at large. It's the community that's engaged and active in the game that we love and we talk about. You're here listening to this podcast. You should watch, whether it's a stream or their official sites. Super important. Okay, the PU update, always a mouthful, always very like on the technical side. But wait, there's more. We're gonna get into the Star Citizen Live recap that took place. So I'm gonna go through this pretty quickly because man, I've been talking at y'all for a very, very long time. Sean Tracy. It was about an hour and 10 minutes ish, just over an hour long, and the scope was very much like engine, Starweave, structural damage, the Maelstrom system. Like it was that kind of tech. And so the moment they got started and I was watching it, I was like, okay, so they're not going to probably address my question. And that's honestly fine. Like truly, that's fine. But they did talk about some frequently discussed, I was going to say hotly debated, really not hotly debated, but there's a lot of interest on like, let's talk Starware, right? Super, super important, right? It's back. There's been a strike team that's been reassembled, and they're looking at launching Starware within the year. So hopefully 2026, we'll see Starware. So I consider this as the biggest takeaway, right? Starware is back on board and a very real way. Sean mentioned that it had the content and tech art foundation, but it was missing enough engineering and design support to actually ship. Right. So that gap is now being addressed by the Strike team. And again, they're targeting within the year. Just to be clear, Starware isn't necessarily fashion. Like, don't think about Starware as fashion directly. It's the backbone. It's like the skeleton, the structure of the fashion, right? So like layering the logic behind how the buttons and the cloth interact with each other. And it just makes everything that you experience in the game, like physically and around you and immersion and all that, it just makes it scale better. And it's not like you're not looking at somebody's cape waving in the hard buttons, also waving and bending like cloth would, as an example. Starware is the logic. I'll go back to skeleton. It is how these systems are being built for clothing. And I know all of you love your drip, right? That's one of the reasons why we play MMOs, is we play so we can get this awesome gear, this end game armor, right? Maybe there is a really awesome, like, even not even a spacesuit. Maybe it's even like civilian wear that you really want to wear. And like, just sometimes they're so clunky. Like, it doesn't look good. It doesn't like act like it's supposed to. This is going to change that. All right. Goodness. All right, here we go. Starware, back to it. The community basically got a preview on that like invisible undersuit bug, right? So CIG doesn't want to create a false promise with a bug version of Starware. They don't want to half ship a feature, but again, like this preview that's invisible. So let me just read you my notes. I'm just gonna read you my notes. The community basically got a preview via the invisible undersuit bug, jackets on armor on shirts. Everyone loved it, and Sean's stance was blunt. We're not going to half-ass it, because if the bug lets you do something that the design system won't, the player base will demand the bug back forever, right? So love it or hate it, that is studio discipline. Right. It's also a clue that Starware will ship as a structured system, not a let chaos reign exploit. Right. So that's why they removed the invisible undersuit, for what that's worth. Scars are coming sooner than later, guys. Scars are coming sooner than later because blood, sweat, and tears tech is already underway. So that's super interesting. That I probably moved that up from beat 3 to beat 2. But it's super exciting because, like, I don't know, they add realism to the game. This goes back to immersion, right? This goes back to you just went through a huge engagement and you're left kind of unbloodied. That doesn't necessarily make sense. I'm thinking of like a certain, 2 or 3 people from Soul Provision that should be very scarred up at this point. Blast Resort, Steel, Groza. Y'all should all have bodies covered in scars. Scars got a real mention. The enabling tech is what they call blood, sweat, and tears. Okay, very cool. It allows bleeding, sweat, and tears and scars. Sean's key point was the tech can place scars today, but the gameplay questions are bigger, right? So when scars happen, how long should they last? How Death of a Spaceman interacts, which that's a whole nother podcast. If y'all want to know what Death of a Spaceman is and how it impacts, maybe another episode, or start looking it up now. But that's a hotly debated topic. This is the kind of feature that starts out as like cosmetics. It starts out as like very surface level, but it becomes your identity. It becomes how you are and who you are, and like how you look. But it also starts bringing up consequences, right? So do I want a freaking scar on my face the entire rest of its life? Death of a Spaceman. It's a step towards persistent. We talk about persistent entity streaming when it comes to servers and the actual gameplay and missions. Well, this is persistence in your character's story, if you want to think of it that way, right? 1 week you are completely fine, and the next week you're covered in cuts and scars. and like blood freaking everywhere. Like that's great. But like it tells a story. Being able to hit third person and look at your character and think, man, I remember when I got that. Does any other game do that? And I'm sure comment sections right now are being written. Oh yeah, of course it happens here. But I think that's brilliant. I think that is super unique coming out of this tech talk. Body customization, right? They're not talking sliders. They're talking body DNA. So long-term target is DNA for bodies, not just faces. And it's a massive asset problem. All right. So body customization is happening, right? It's not just to add height or add a gut, right? The goal is to build like the DNA behind it, much like facial DNA, right? They made that call out. It's funny. The blocker I have written down, the blocker was like reality. Star Citizen has around 1,200. I have written down 1,200 body assets in the PU, all in different states, and every single one needs its own like project. It needs markup to deform correctly across body ranges. Like again, think about every character creator in a game that you've played in the last 4 or 5 years. Right, most of the time it's you have this triangle, right? This triangle, and you put the cursor on the triangle, and it like muscular or thin or obese, and maybe it's for the same like facial features like the nose length. You move a slider to make it longer or shorter. Like it's very basic. But if you want an idea of what they're talking about, go into the character creator of Star Citizen. Just look at the facial, like the way they look at facial features. It is completely different. In my opinion, it's completely different. They're talking about like the DNA. They're talking about the bioscience of your facial features. Well, that's now going to be pulled through the rest of your body. All right. It's not hard because of the idea. He said that we could already do it. He said that we could, the tech is there. But it's just a large back end, right? If they continue doing this, it's because they want customization to scale, right? They want it to be something that builds into 1.0. Again, they could stop now. They could stop now and say, all right, this is character creator and it's done. But it's clear that the guidance was, or the direction or vision was, that they want the whole body impacted by this. All right, cybernetics for all you, good Lord. The name of the game, I read out cybernetics and now my mind just went blank. What is the RPG? Cyberpunk. Good Lord. I need to just wrap up the podcast episode now and just call it. Just say we're done here. Okay. Cyberpunk. So when I heard cybernetics, I'm like, oh, all right, let's do this. Let me just go straight into the notes before. I don't know. It's a Friday morning. Cybernetics exist, but player cybernetics can't be just cosmetic without breaking the fantasy. Okay, it's a weird one. It's a weird one. Sean basically says that the tech can do it. They already do it for some characters, but the real questions are design and animation. Can you remove an arm? What happens to FPS gameplay? How do general animations hold up? NPCs can do it easily, of course, because that can be programmed, but players, that's when this gets like super complicated. Right. So we all want it. We go into these stations and these rooms and we see posters on the wall. Right. Maybe you don't know, but now you'll look for them. I promise you. But there's like advertisements for companies that do cybernetics. Like it is a thing. It is absolutely a thing. But that is the question, is like, how does that work on you as the player, and how does it impact things throughout Star Citizen? I think that is extremely down the road. Like we're not even really able to play the game with what we have right now. Now throw in all this modification on cyberware. And I think we're further out than what we think. If it even happens, right? He just addressed it. All right. So face scan, this goes back to FOIP, the facial recognition features. They want it, but they won't ship cursed faces. So you can expect DNA. I'm going to call it like in fact, I think they called it DNA approximation. It's not a true face scan, but it'll give you pretty damn close to it. So he referenced like NBA 2K15 is the game that I've written down that he referenced. That it's a cautionary tale, right? So if it doesn't work extremely well, it becomes a circus, right? There's a whole story back end of NBA 2K15. The smarter approach, and this is his words, the smarter approach is using webcam FOIP images to drive DNA toward an approximation. So kind of get you in the ballpark of the image, not a literal scan, right? I think this tells us about the culture of like the development team and of the game, right? They would rather ship nothing than ship something that could be detrimental. I'm going to say to immersion, but like really the culture of the game, in my opinion. Okay. The next content ramp is tools driven, and they're building for speed. They talked tools for a long stretch. And the key thing wasn't we have lots of tools. It's that tools are force multipliers. So star detect came up again in the context of Genesis and location propagation, less manual placement, more scalable world building. Sean made a comment. We delivered 2 star systems in the same calendar year. Is basically saying like that's not the end state. Like that's not the ceiling, right? So if you want faster planets, if you want more locations, this is the only way, right? This Genesis idea, right? So they went into tools and how this is important. Again, it's on the back end. You will not see, like you won't go, I'm making this up, guys. This is not like a real example, but you're not going to be able to go to one planet and say, Genesis created this, or go to another planet and say, this was absolutely one of the OG planets. I believe they made a comment about redoing every single planet through the eyes of Genesis. So we're probably going to see major changes in that world anyways. But these back end changes to tools where we don't see them are super important to getting us to that 1.0, maybe faster, better, and beyond. All right. Starware, back to Starware. Tagging clothing enables contextual NPC outfitting procedurally, right? So underrated Starware detail. Once assets are split and records are aligned, they can tag clothing. So warm climate, cold climate, sunny, whatever. And procedural NPC systems can spawn outfits that match the environment without a human hand authoring every loadout. So again, back to the immersion. This is how you make the universe feel like it's living. NPCs dress like they belong, not like they're wearing random props. So on New Babbage, you're not going to see somebody walking around in snow in shorts and a t-shirt. There you go. So Starware is also going to help the NPCs not look staged. All right, Maelstrom. Maelstrom is huge, and I still have questions with Maelstrom and how it's going to impact and how we rebuild and all of that, and how that's going to work, right? So my initial question has always been like, if I'm an org and I go and assault an objective and we lay waste to a village in Pyro, whole thing gets destroyed because of Maelstrom, we fly off. I mean, it can't just stay destroyed forever. Does somebody have to go and rebuild it? Maybe it's a game loop where they have to go and rebuild the village. I don't know. Does it, once everybody leaves and that dynamic server turns off, does it then just get rebuilt because there's no players in the vicinity? Well, okay, that's not necessarily sustainable or scalable because not every server will have that on off, right? So I have all these questions about Maelstrom and how that's going to work. So this is just answering one piece of it. This is just addressing one part of Maelstrom. So destructible foliage isn't on off. Maelstrom is the system, but integration is very complex, like we were just talking about, right? So destructible trees, for instance, no. That's not a thing. The old CryEngine style system is gone. The new path is Maelstrom, procedural fracture and destruction. Sean even mentioned doing Maelstrom work to support armor break off of specific characters, right? But I also think Sean was very clear. The bigger question is how Maelstrom and planet tech and physics intersect, right? So Maelstrom is foundational for physicalizing everything, but it's also one of those features that only is that's only impressive when it's stable. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, exactly like how I started this beat. They're gonna have to figure it out. I don't know what that looks like, how it interacts with planet tech. Like if you drop a bomb and it creates a crater, is this now like No Man's Sky where it just leaves permanent impacts on the planet? Like that can't be scalable or sustainable. So how far does Maelstrom go? How far do you want it to go as a gamer? Because I don't necessarily want an org just to go through and proactively destroy villages, knowing that it impacts players downstream. If you can't get to an objective because things are blown up. So I just think there's a lot of things that, and again, luckily I'm not working on it. All right, just 3 more. All right. Virtual reality. Oh my gosh. So they tried it. It's great, but it has issues, right? They are setting your expectations with virtual reality. It's going to evolve, but it's not going to be easy. So Star Citizen has high standards. Now we can debate whether or not play in the game right now it's high standards. But they do. If you listen to what they expect this game to eventually be able to do, you can't argue that their bar is set really high. I think there's a difference between vision and execution. And right now the execution is like, oh God, are we even going to be able to log into the game right now? I think that's a reality. That's absolutely a reality. But their bar, their vision, their intent of where Star Citizen is going is very high. And so that expectation, they don't want to half-ass virtual reality. They don't want to say, okay, well, that's a subpar experience. So then why even invest time in creating virtual reality? They want it to be the same fidelity standards, right? They want it to be as good as the other bars that they're setting for Star Citizen. All right. Facial idols, yes, they can add blinks and micro movements even when FOIP is off. Okay, small immersion wins. Procedural facial life is on the table. This is happening. So someone in the community asked about random blinking, eyebrows, body shifts, and Sean said yes. There's already facial idol built into the game, but it's too dead. They can proceduralize blinks and face freezing, right? But it's likely a bug issue is what he called out. It's likely a bug or a culling issue because an idol should always be running. So why does this matter? Back to immersion again, the millionth time. But that small update, that small change, when I'm standing right next to my org member and we're interacting, I'm passing loot or I'm asked for a cruise because I need to hydrate. It's just in that interaction, in that immediate 5-10 seconds, just like audio, you might not deliberately think, oh my gosh, that character just blinked at me. But there is a subconscious kind of, I don't think it's deliberate. I don't think that's the word I'm looking for, but it's this, I'll go back to subconscious, subliner experience where like a nostril flaring, it shows the game can be as expensive as we've invested in, almost billions of dollars, almost. That's a lot of investment. And I just think this kind of levels up the expensive feel of the game. You already have massive ships and beautiful planets and screenshots galore. It's going to make those videos that we make, like the third person videos. It's going to make those a lot more realistic and believable. But it's going to be that subtle back end change that's going to make you feel more alive in the verse. Okay. Starcloth. My last beat, right? Here's my last beat. Starcloth. The real story is the new Maya plugin. All right. Starcloth iteration just got massively more controllable. Updates on the Starcloth were interesting, not because cloth exists and all of that, but this goes back to what I was saying earlier about buttons interacting with like soft fabric, right? It is another tool's story. It's another tool on the back end, right? But I do think that creates the layers, that creates the better output of fewer immersion breaking moments. It's that entire thing that we've been talking about for the last, 30 minutes. A lot of what Sean talked about was backend systems, backend tools. It's not going to be the, hey, 4.7 launched with Starcloth. I don't think it's ever going to be that. But that's not. It's also like a lot of producers and developers in video games. They work on things knowing they will never have the limelight. They work on things knowing they will never probably be celebrated because they made a button or a grommet physicalized on a uniform, right? But all together, the entire experience, we as gamers simplify it and we say, overall rating of this game, very immersive, and then we move on. But that one little sentence of like, oh, the game's super immersive. I love the way the players look. All right, let's talk about combat in space. It's that one sentence that they're diving for, right? They're trying to get that one sentence. Star Citizen is the most immersive game that's out there, space game or anything like it. And so it is a one sentence headliner that is layered in millions and millions of inputs. And so you watch this and it might not be sexy to you. It might not be, this massive, oh my gosh, let me make a podcast over this episode. It might not matter to you. It's not that game loop. It's not a new station to go explore. It's not new gear or raids or PvE versus PvP. None of the buzz phrases, but it is this massive undertaking that is persistent and underlying through everything. Everything that you do is impacted by this hour-long conversation by Sean. So I think it's easy to move past it. I think it's easy to say, okay, well, that's fine. Not important. Doesn't really impact my day-to-day, when subconsciously and subtly it does. It does impact your everyday. And I think for the better. I think you're really going to enjoy having these visual changes in this experience. All right. It was CIG saying that the next era of what they're working on is tooling, Starware, DNA bodies, Star Detect, Maelstrom, Starcloth, throw Star and a million other different names. Because that is how Star Citizen will scale without collapsing under its own weight. Oh my goodness. How about some screen sharing? You guys done looking at me? I'm sure y'all are done looking at me. Let's go to some March subscriber promotions. I actually really enjoyed this month. Kind of a new idea. Like, I don't know. No one saw this coming. I didn't see this coming. This is a completely new idea. We'll get into what this image is here in a second, but super important. But let's go through the subscriber promotion. So again, for those of you who are maybe new to the podcast, new to the subscriber program, there's two levels. There's Centurion and then there's Imperator. Centurion is your low level entry, your low dollar entry. And then Imperator is like your next level. So you get the two. If you're a Centurion, you get the Paramed. It's just a blue Paramed device. Cool. There's like a million of those now. Especially after the last couple of events that took you through last year. You probably have, a Hurston one, a Crusader one, an Arcorp one, New Babbage one. So anyways, you're going to get that. It's like a $4 item. Awesome. Congratulations. Then you've got this Cure Life Field Medic Kit. This is new. And this is a physical box. It is a physical box that is filled with med pens, the green gels, right? The med gel refills. I could probably just read you the descriptor. It provides convenient and portable storage for paramed medical devices, the Panacea, med gel refills, and additional medicine injectors. The kit comes pre-stocked with refills. So you wouldn't really put this on like an Apollo because you already have the medical beds. So I mean, you wouldn't put it on an Apollo. You wouldn't put it on a C8R Pisces. So like for me, this is more of a field medic kit. It literally says field medic kit. This is more of a, like you're going on your, I can't even say Clipper. You're going on a Intrepid. I don't know. First ship that came to mind. You're on your Intrepid. You have this one spot in your kitchen or in your living space where you can put, this. It's a way for you to easily have things put together. I guess I love the concept. I don't know why you would necessarily need it in the current state of the game. I'm not exactly sure. And the reason why I'm saying that is, I mean, I can get by with 4 med pens on my heavy gear and maybe use 2 of them. And that's for like an entire org night full of, QV breaker stations last night. Not breaker stations, but the QV stations. I don't think I've ever used more than one med gel refill ever. So do I need 5? Probably not. So I really don't know when you would use this. If you're in a medical ship and you're in the medical gameplay, you're just going to use the medical beds. And then if you're in a ship like the Intrepid, again, a total example there, you usually can survive with what's on your persons. But I like the concept. I think they need more of this. All right. And then, of course, you can go to the store and spend like $7 or just over $7 to get everything. Somebody asked me what the purpose of this was. And just to answer that here on the podcast, I would say for giveaways. Because if you're an Imperador, right, and you're going to get the medical kit, you're going to get the medical device. So then why is there something for both? Why can't you get both? I do it because of giveaways. If there's somebody who's not a subscriber and I'm like, hey, here you go, boom, you won this giveaway. That's personally why I do it for $7.20. But that's the only real reason I think it exists. You also get ships. So Centurion get to try out for the month. They get to try out the Ursa Medevac, a $60 value. And then if you're Imperador, you get to try out both the Apollo Medevac and the Ursa Medevac. And that Apollo Medevac is freaking awesome. $290 worth of a ship. It's a very, very good medical ship. So if you drive the Hermes, or if you know about the Hermes, it's basically the same hull. Just one obviously is cargo, while the other one is medical. Okay, let's go back to episode 140. Wrap this up with the community. We asked you for ship audio in space, what should CIG prioritize? And 45.5% of you said the rule of cool. You don't care about reality, which is why we play the game, but you don't care about real physics and the sound travel throughout the space, you think rule of cool, and I'm actually in agreement. I could care less about what is realistic in space, quite honestly. 27.3% of you say toggle. You want to be able to turn on both modes or flip between both modes. And another 27.3% of you say it depends on the location. I don't know how the depending on I'm the one that put it as an option, but I don't necessarily know how that would work. So you would hear sound in Nix, but you wouldn't hear sound in Stanton, or am I not thinking about that correctly? I could be wrong. All right, we have 9 comments to get through. I love it. Thank you for your engagement. And I think it also includes nested, so we're not going to go through the nested quotes. But these are all the comments from you on episode 140. Here we go. William George writes, as long as the Javelin, Idris, and Bengal have the twisting and creaking metal sounds coming out of Quantum from the 2951 Invictus launch trailer, I'll be very happy. Still gives me goosebumps. Shadow Fry 2 writes, I don't have a problem with sound in space. It'd be realistic and would require a sound filter that adjusted the pitch based on the primary gas in the atmosphere. Imagine taking talking after taking a lung full of helium, or deepen the resonance in underwater, then have the different frequencies be able to travel differently based on density of the medium. And each engine would need a unique sound because of high quality engine would run smoother than a low quality one. Yes. So all of that to say, Fire, I agree with you. I think the complexity could become pretty intense. Depending on how they want to get into it. Because you get out of your ship and you look at your menu, your F1 menu, and there's a balance, there's a percent breakdown of like how much air is in your mask or around you. But to your point, if you're in a place that's high helium, should that raise your vocal cords, right? Like that. It's very interesting. Soundwaves Ghost writes, I will endeavor to all right, I'll give context after I read this. Soundwaves Ghost writes, I will endeavor to text to speech better in the future. I didn't find any of the stuff they did particularly tone deaf, just more of a lame duck in timing. The sound stuff is amazing, and yeah, it fades into the background, but it makes everything better, like lighting for videos. Even if we never meet in person, at the minimum, you are my brother from another branch of the veteran tree, so razz all you want. That's how we do. All right, so it's funny. On the last episode's segment where I'm reading post, Soundwaves Ghost, like he writes, but he's using text to speech whenever he writes, and so it looks kind of it's hard to read through, quite honestly. And so I kind of razzed him a little bit. I was kind of making fun of him, but he's a friend of mine from the org, so like I felt comfortable in doing so. So that's what he's referencing. Yes, we are veterans. Much love to you as well. I saw an opportunity and I took it. All right, Billy the Beast writes, I couldn't imagine how dull this game would be without hearing gunshots, ship sounds, etc., and seeing explosions while out of atmosphere. I'm out of atmosphere 80% of the time. On the human side subject, I was very vocal on how much I hated the fin on the wolf and made sure to voice it posted every time I got the chance until I seen the guy who designed it and how he was so proud of the fin. And now he feels so bad for that man. No to ship horns. Do airplanes have horns? Fighter jets, spaceships? The answer is no there. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's just a good reminder. I'll say it more often than not. Developers are still people, man. They have feelings, maybe just one or two feelings, but they've got feelings. Agreed. I think this comment was really funny. He writes, as a European, it's strange to me that you apologize for mentioning the words sex appeal, yet, quote, killing player characters is fine. No offense or criticism, just interesting to see the cultural differences within Western cultures. Sound in space is tricky. I loved the muffled engines and explosions in Battlestar Galactica, but the fleet battle in Star Wars Episode 3 sounded amazing too. Magical Christmas land would be to have a cinematic, realistic slider in the settings. Keep up the good work, bud. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, in the last episode, I'm talking about sex appeal whenever the audio and everything we talked about this episode, like things are put into the game to make things feel and look better. And sometimes I'll say the sex appeal. It's this really awesome, beautiful moment. And I'm always apologizing for that because everybody hears the word sex and they're like, ooh, bad word, right? Kids in the car, they're like, ooh, cover your ears. He said the word sex. And so I always like innately apologize for saying it. But yeah, we talk about murdering and blowing up ships and running drugs from jump towns. I'm sure that's the least of my concerns when I talk about sex appeal. Brent Sanders writes, I think there's a need for both. Some people want a very realistic experience and some want that movie sound. He wants the movie sound, and I agree. I want the movie sound. I don't really care about realism. Give me the awesomeness. Liberty writes, as an aviation mechanic and car enthusiast, I am so excited to hear and understand the difference between ship engines and ship sounds. I am stoked to be able to soon live off grid in that beautiful RSI Galaxy, coming IAE, when it comes out. Great episode. Love what you do and how you do it. Blessings, Liberty. Thank you so much. Steelwicker Beast writes, I am excited for the ship audio updates. The last year or so of ships have spectacular audio design, and each one sounds unique. From the near alien-like sound coming from the RSI Salvation to the laser repeaters on the Alpha Wolf. 1000%. The Alpha Wolf sounds amazing. One thing I can wait for, however, is spending another dime on an Origin ship. Have to agree with you that the sail is tone deaf. Some new paints would have been nice, and they should have revealed a new ship at the minimum. Does your opinion change if that Origin ship that comes out in the next couple of months is a generalist and maybe, I don't know, like a fancy, nice looking Drake cutter or clipper? I don't know. I mean, that'd be a reason for me enough to to buy the Origin ship. But yeah, right now, just completely worthless. And we're going to end the night with Gabriel. Just playing devil's advocate, but you criticize ship horns. How else am I supposed to get the flying space whales and Crusader to get out of my way? But practically drool over leather, making a sound when you get in a ship. All right. And then they write, I'm going to reach out to you, Sulyce. I want to give something to the guy who won the ship in the last game package. I can't sit still knowing CIG unintentionally will be trolling this guy or girl. Okay, let me address that first, and then I'll address your first point. I confirmed that with the Atlas giveaway from this last episode, the loaner ship that comes with the Atlas is like an Aurora. So they will have the ability to fly from point A to point B and then actually use their Atlas. So that's the good news. Then maybe they get enough money in game to then buy their next cargo hauler and then truly get the use of their Atlas. But I've been talking with this individual through email, just making sure that they were covered down. So we're good there, truly. This first one, ship horns. Like, I think the other comment down below, I just want to repeat what they said. So not my words, but words that support me. Airplanes don't have horns, right? Like current rocket ships. What was the quote? No to ship horns. Do airplanes have horns? Fighter jets, spaceships. There's no horns in aerial ships. And so I think getting into a seat that has leather, which you can probably hear for some reason, my chair I'm sitting in right now has stereo on. It's freaking loud when I'm moving. Anyways, but like just natural movements in my seat has that leather pull. So like that will exist no matter what medium you're flying in or riding in. But the use of a ship horn on an aircraft, again, next time you fly commercially, what would be the point of that commercial jet having a horn? Yeah. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right, everybody. Great episode. A lot of content. We went, I think, over an hour here on this one. 2 really deep dives with the PU monthly report and the Star Citizen Live Tech Talk. We're going to keep this moving forward. I would love to hear your thoughts. Contact at beyondtheversehq.com or in the comments section, especially in Spotify. We read through like we just did the comments. But let me know if this tempo works for you, if this style works for you, where I'm not really sharing my screen, but I'm pulling out, I'm extrapolating what I think is the most important. If that works for you, let me know. If it doesn't work for you, let me know. I'm changing my ways because of y'all. I want to make sure that the product I'm giving to you is the best and value add. And you should not just go watch it yourself and then be like, okay, what was the point of that? Cool. We are still doing Extra Life, guys. Still doing Extra Life for the rest of the year. Obviously, it's a yearly thing. This is money donated by you directly to children's hospitals in the United States. So if you want to do that, beyondtheversehq.com/give, right? While we're talking about websites, if there's anything you want to know or learn about our podcast or our in-game organization, Soul Provision, you can do so and find that information at beyondtheversehq.com. All right, we already talked about, yes. Okay, so next in the verse, Stella Fortuna. That should be around mid-March. So that's the next in-game event. Can't wait to see y'all there. There's a couple of outside of the game events that we will be participating in, giveaways, much, much, much more. For episode 141 of Beyond the Verse podcast, I am Sulyce. Safe travels as you traverse Beyond the Verse.